Now that Tim's gone over all of our learning objectives, the initial presentation, and our generative strategies, let's take a look at the actual instructional unit. For this particular project, we focused on the interactive multimedia instructional unit, which is going to be web-based or housed on the Pinellas Park Prosthetics website, accessible to all of the patients, and the patients will be able to take this instructional unit as many times as they need over and over again to reinforce the concepts. This takes time away from the practitioners having to continually do this verbally. It gives some visual to what the learners are experiencing, as well as letting them kind of do this at their own pace. So they do need to have access to a computer and internet, obviously, but we've done this in an HTML5 version, so it will work on smart devices as well, and so we can have iPads and things like that at the practitioner's office, or even a computer available at the practitioner's office so that they can have the patients do it at the office if it's a problem to do this in their own home. So this is the instructional unit. It was done in Articulate Storyline 2. So it starts out kind of with your basic welcome screen. Your user would hit next. And then it goes on to talk about why this is relevant to the learner. So it says, congratulations on taking the first step to controlling and managing your new prosthesis. This unit will teach you everything you need to know about how your residual limb and prosthetic socket fit together. It will also guide you through the actions you can take to increase the comfort of your prosthesis and improve your function and activity level. You are in control of how you manage the fit of your prosthesis. So let's get started. And so what we were hoping there was just to grab their attention and make sure that they understand why what they're learning is relative and how they can transfer this knowledge. So this next screen just goes over the course layout. This instructional unit is designed for you to follow along with the menu objectives in order. As you complete each learning objective, you'll be directed back to the main menu where you'll notice another learning objective will be available for you. Each learning objective listed on the menu screen will teach you about the important topic related to managing your prosthetic socket fit and comfort. After learning about each topic, you'll have the opportunity to test your understanding. Click the next button at the bottom of the screen to advance through the course. So we had essentially 6 learning objectives, and as you can see, only number 2 is highlighted currently because we only focused on actually creating the learning unit for just the one objective. But ideally, what would happen is the user would come here and number 1 would be the only one available. And until they complete number 1, they wouldn't be able to do number 2, 3, 4, and so on. And that has to do with the sequencing that we chose. So let's check out number 2, which is common skin issues. We've inserted a lovely picture here of skin. And the first topic we talk about redness being normal, and so that the user understands that redness of the skin is a normal part of using a prosthesis. The prosthesis creates pressure on the skin that displays as redness when the prosthesis is removed. A good way to gauge whether the pressure is excessive or normal is by how long the skin stays red after the prosthesis is removed. If the redness persists longer than 15 minutes after the prosthesis is removed, then you should contact your prosthetist to have the fit inspected. So then it goes on to skin issues. Talks about skin issues can arise from a number of causes, but as an amputee, you're at a higher risk of experiencing some sort of skin issue because of the environment surrounding your residual limb when using a prosthesis. Explore common skin issues using the tabs above. So we have tabs here, which of course, when you hover over them, they kind of change states a little bit. We go into redness, and again, this is showing redness beyond 15 minutes, and talks a little bit more about redness in general. Redness of the skin is a normal part of being an amputee. An example of appropriate redness is what you see when you remove a shoe from your foot. Redness is an indication of an area of skin that has undergone pressure. If the prosthesis is removed and an area of redness is seen, it should last no longer than 15 minutes. During this time, blood flow will return to normal and the skin will return to its typical coloring. If the redness persists beyond the 15-minute mark, this is an indication that there's too much pressure at that area. Now it's got this nice check mark, knowing you visited there, so we can move on. Blisters. It's a big old blister there. Blisters most often occur when there's a suction against the skin. Fluid is pulled into an area between the layers of skin to create the blister. The fluid can be clear or could be a dark color. If the fluid is dark color, that's an indication that blood has been moved into the blister space. Blisters can also be caused by too much friction. Increased frictional force creates shear. To cushion against the force, the body creates a fluid-filled area of skin. Blisters should be left alone and not popped open. Opening the blisters exposes the skin to potential infection. Callus. A callus is a buildup of skin that occurs from increased pressure. A callus generally forms over bony areas of the stump. A callus can be reduced by distributing the pressure away from the callus. If pressure is continually placed on the callus, it could develop a wound underneath the callus. Speaking of wounds, a wound is a break in the skin. It can be through a single layer of skin or all the way into the deep structures such as bone. A wound might also be known by other names such as ulcers or sores. A wound is a clear indication that there is a problem with the fit of the prosthesis. In many cases, the only way to heal a wound is to stop use of the prosthesis until fully healed. To this end, prevention is the best remedy. And lastly, we talk about edema. Edema is a term used to describe swelling in the body. It arises from an accumulation of fluid in the spaces between the muscles and the skin. Edema can occur for many reasons. Edema is a problem for an amputee because it directly affects how the prosthesis fits to the stump. Edema can be an acute problem and resolve in a short period of time, or it could be a chronic condition that has to be managed. So now that we've gone through all of the different skin issues, which we wanted the learner or the user to be able to identify those, we hit next, and now here comes the generative strategy, or how they practice that knowledge. And so we have a generative strategy after each learning objective. So, which skin issue is noted by an increase in size due to a buildup of fluid in the body? So, a buildup of fluid, or increase in size due to a buildup of fluid, would be edema. But we wanted our users to be able to get the answer wrong and try again. So we're just going to pretend we're going to say that's a callus and hit submit. And it's incorrect, so they get their immediate feedback and they're told to try again. So let's say they try again and they hit edema this time and they get it correct. This picture represents which type of skin issue, because again, our learning objective is to identify skin issues, and so we're testing them by sending out a text scenario or a description or a picture, and so then the learner has to identify. So looking at this, is it a callus, a wound, a blister, or edema? You know, this is a wound, and that's correct. And again, if they had gotten it wrong, they would be prompted to try again. Which skin issue is the body's attempt to protect the skin from excessive friction? Edema, blister, wound, or callus? So we'll select blister and hit submit. We got it right. Woohoo! Which skin issue is a buildup of skin that most often occurs over a bony prominence? Callus. Hit submit. We got our feedback. Then it gives us our results. So we scored 100. In our learning objectives, we stated with that we wanted our learners to score at least 75%. But of course, this is the generative strategy, not the actual assessment. And so they passed. They can go back and they have the option to review the quiz or to go back to the main menu. So let's take a look at what review quiz looks like. So as you go through, it just shows whether or not you got it correct and then checks what the correct answer is. Okay. brings you back here. You would go back to the main menu, and then from here, another learning objective would be available for the learner to continue on. Again, we have 6 total learning objectives, each with an initial presentation of the content and then the generative strategy to kind of test their knowledge and see where they're at. And then number 7 is links to printed resources. For example, we talked about creating a PDF or a paper document that the learner could also use. So that would be available there. And then, of course, the learner is able to come back to this and do the unit as many times as possible. And that is our instructional unit in a nutshell.